The rain fell in a quiet, persistent rhythm as I sat alone on the park bench, the cold seeping into my bones, but somehow not touching the warmth that stirred deep inside me. It had been years, almost a decade, since I last saw him, the man who had once been my everything, my first love, my heartbreak, and now, the stranger I was about to meet again. I still remember that day we parted like it was yesterday, the air heavy with unsaid words, the aching silence filling the spaces where promises once lived. We were young, scared, and the world outside wasn't ready for us. I had to leave. He stayed behind. We never said goodbye. I glanced at my watch nervously, the minutes stretching longer with every tick. He was late. I wondered if he'd even come. My mind wandered back to the summer when we met. It was a time when the world felt endless, the city buzzing with possibility and secrets. I was 18, fresh out of high school, terrified of what I was but too curious to hide. He was the first person who saw me, not just the boy I showed the world, but the one I kept locked away. His laugh was the melody I needed, and his touch was the language my heart learned to speak. We met by chance in a small bookstore tucked away in the corner of the city, both reaching for the same worn copy of Giovanni's Room. Our fingers brushed, and everything shifted. That night, we shared our first kiss under the amber streetlights, the world fading away until there was only us. But life wasn't kind. Family pressures, fear, and distance tore us apart. I moved away for college, trying to bury the love I thought would destroy me. He stayed, building a life I was no longer part of. And yet, every night, I held onto the memories like a lifeline. Then, out of nowhere, the message came, "I'm going to be in town next week. Can we meet?" My heart leapt, then faltered. Could we really pick up where we left off? After all this time, all the pain, the silence? Was there still something left between us? Or was I just clutching a ghost? The park was almost empty, save for a few scattered walkers and the distant echo of children's laughter. I pulled my jacket tighter, scanning every face that passed, searching for the familiar eyes I once knew so well. Then there he was. Older, yes, but still unmistakably him. The same shy smile that had once melted my defenses. The same way his eyes caught the light and held it. Our gazes locked, and for a moment, everything else disappeared. He approached slowly, uncertainty and hope dancing in his steps. "Hey," he said, voice rough with emotion. "You came. I wasn't sure you would." I admitted, my throat tight. He smiled, that old smile, the one that made me believe in possibility again. I almost didn't, but I had to try. We sat side by side on the bench, the silence between us heavy but not uncomfortable. It was the kind of silence filled with years of memories, regrets, and the fragile hope of something new. "Tell me everything," I whispered. "What happened? Why now?" He looked down, tracing circles in the wet leaves at our feet. "I never stopped thinking about you. Even when I said I was okay, even when I tried to move on, you were there. And when I got sick, I realized how much time we lost." My heart ached at his confession. We had both carried wounds, scars invisible but deep. "Me too," I said softly. "I thought I was protecting myself, but I was just running away." He reached out, his hand finding mine like it never wanted to let go. "Maybe we can't get the years back, but maybe we can make the time we have now mean something." Tears welled in my eyes, the weight of the past pressing down, but also lifting. In that moment, the rain didn't feel cold. It felt like a cleansing, washing away the old pain to make room for new beginnings. We talked for hours, sharing stories of who we'd become, the dreams we chased and lost, the nights we'd cried alone. It was raw and messy and beautiful, the kind of conversation only two people who once loved each other could have. As night fell, the city lights flickered on, casting a warm glow over us. He leaned his head on my shoulder, and I wrapped my arm around him, feeling the steady beat of his heart against mine. Lost time, yes, but found love too. Maybe this was our second chance, not to erase the past but to build something real from it. I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. We had to face our fears, the judgments of the world, and most of all, the ghosts inside ourselves. But for the first time in years, I felt something I hadn't dared to hope for: peace and love. The days that followed our reunion unfolded like a fragile dance, tentative, uncertain, yet undeniably magnetic. We spent hours wandering the city together, rediscovering familiar streets that seemed somehow different now, as if time had bent around us to hold this moment in place. The world was louder than I remembered, but when we were side by side, it all quieted down, shrinking until there was nothing but the two of us. We talked about the years we lost, the gaps in our lives filled with silence, the dreams we chased alone. He told me about his struggles, the isolation, the times he felt like he didn't belong, the nights he fought to keep himself together when everything seemed to crumble. I shared my own wounds, the loneliness in crowded rooms, the fear of being seen, and the ache of carrying a love I couldn't touch. It was brutal and beautiful, this raw unspooling of pain and hope. One afternoon, we found ourselves sitting on a worn-out bench by the river, the water reflecting the gray sky above. He turned to me, his eyes wet but steady. "Do you ever wonder if we're fooling ourselves? That maybe this is just nostalgia, and the real us is long gone?" I looked at him, searching for the boy who once held my hand so tightly, afraid to let go.
Ido, he admitted.
"But maybe it doesn't have to be perfect. Maybe it's enough just to try." He reached out and brushed a stray lock of hair from my face. "I want to try, even if it scares me." The vulnerability between us was raw, like skin pressed to skin, too exposed to hide. I wanted to tell him everything, to promise I'd never leave again. But I also knew love wasn't about promises made in the heat of reunion. It was about showing up, day after day, even when it's hard. That night, back at my apartment, we sat in the dim light, fingers entwined. The silence stretched between us. Not the heavy silence of old wounds, but the quiet that comes from knowing you're exactly where you belong. He looked up at me, eyes reflecting the flicker of candlelight. "I'm scared," he said simply. "Me too," I whispered, and somehow that scared honesty was enough. We didn't rush. There were no grand declarations or sudden leaps, just small moments, shared breakfasts, long conversations, gentle touches that spoke louder than words. It felt like learning to breathe again after being underwater for too long. But the past had a way of creeping in uninvited. One afternoon, as we walked through the market, a man called out to him with a cruel sneer. The words weren't loud, but they sliced through the air. Accusations and slurs meant to wound. He froze, shoulders tightening, pain flashing across his face. I pulled him close, anger rising in my chest. Not just at the man, but at a world that still held so much hate. That night, we lay tangled in sheets, wounds raw beneath the surface. I held him, feeling his trembling breath against my skin. "Why did you stay?" I asked quietly. "Because I had to," he replied. "But I was tired, so tired." We held each other until the pain ebbed, until the silence was full of something softer, hope. Our journey wasn't just about finding each other again. It was about reclaiming the parts of ourselves that the world tried to erase. It was about fighting for a love that was real, messy, and worth every scar. Slowly, the barriers between us crumbled. I learned to read the small signs, the way he smiled when he thought no one was watching, the nervous laugh that still caught me off guard, the way his hand fit perfectly in mine. And he learned to trust, to let someone in, even after the years of solitude. There was a moment, weeks later, when we stood on the rooftop of my building, city lights glittering around us like stars. He pulled me close, his breath warm against my ear. "I don't want to lose you again," he murmured. "You won't," I promised. "Not this time." And in that promise, I felt the weight of all the lost years lift, replaced by something fragile but unbreakable. Love wasn't about perfect timing or easy paths. It was about choosing each other, again and again, despite the scars, despite the fears. That night, under the vast, indifferent sky, we found not just each other, but a home. The weeks turned into months, and with each passing day, our connection deepened in ways I hadn't dared to imagine. It wasn't a fairy tale. There were still struggles, moments of doubt, and the ever-present shadows of the past that sometimes loomed too large. But beneath it all was a steady flame, a quiet promise that neither time nor distance could extinguish. He came to stay with me, gradually making my small apartment a shared space filled with memories both old and new. We cooked meals together, laughing over burnt toast and mismatched spices. We argued over silly things and made up with soft kisses that tasted like forgiveness. The world outside still felt hostile at times, but in the sanctuary we created, there was safety. One evening, as we lay tangled in bed, he traced patterns on my skin with gentle fingers and said, "I never thought I'd feel this alive again." "Me neither," I whispered. "I was so afraid love like this was gone forever." He looked at me then, eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "You saved me, more than you know." The weight of his words settled between us like a benediction. We had both carried so much pain, but together we were learning to heal. But healing isn't linear. There were nights when the silence stretched too long, when the ghosts of past betrayals whispered doubts into our ears. We had to learn patience for ourselves and for each other. Sometimes, I caught him staring into the distance, lost in memories I couldn't reach. Other times, I found myself retreating behind walls I didn't know I'd built. One night, after a particularly difficult day, he curled into my chest and whispered, "I'm scared I'll lose you." "You won't," I promised again, my voice steady despite the fear gnawing inside me. "Not this time." Our journey was messy, filled with the kind of raw honesty that demands vulnerability. We learned to sit with discomfort, to hold space for each other's pain, and to find joy in the small victories. The stolen smiles, the quiet mornings, the moments when the world felt just a little less heavy. Slowly, our love began to change us. It gave us strength to face the world with courage we never had before. We started coming out, together and separately, peeling back the layers of shame and fear that had wrapped around us for so long. At first, it was terrifying. Family dinners filled with strained silences, whispered conversations with old friends unsure how to respond. But we faced it all side by side, finding comfort in the knowledge that we were no longer alone. One afternoon, he took my hand as we walked through the neighborhood where we first met. "Do you remember that day?" he asked, eyes bright. "How could I forget?" I smiled. He stopped and pulled me close. "I want to make new memories with you, not just the ones we lost." I nodded, tears pricking at the corners of my eyes. "Me too." And so we began to live again, not just surviving but truly living. Each day was a gift, a chance to write a new story. A story of love found after loss, of two broken hearts beating in sync against all odds. Our reunion wasn't just about reclaiming the past. It was about embracing the future, no matter how uncertain. In the quiet moments, when it was just us and the steady beat of our hearts, I knew that what we had was rare and beautiful. It was imperfect, scarred, and sometimes fragile. But it was ours, and that made all the difference. There came a morning when I woke up to the soft sound of sunlight filtering through the curtains, and for the first time in a long while, I felt completely at peace. He was still asleep beside me, his chest rising and falling in a steady rhythm that matched the quiet beating of my own heart. In that stillness, I realized how far we'd come, not just from the moment we parted years ago, but from the boy and the man we had been when the world was so much colder. The past didn't vanish. It was still there, in the scars on our skin and the quiet ache beneath our smiles. But we had learned how to carry it without letting it crush us. We had found love again, fragile but fierce. That day, I decided to take a step I'd been hesitant to make for years. I reached for my phone and started drafting a message to my family, telling them about us, about him, about the life we were building together. My fingers trembled as I typed, but I kept going. It was a declaration, not just to them but to myself. Promise that I wouldn't hide anymore. When I showed it to him, he smiled, his eyes shining with pride and something softer. Hope. We hit send together, holding each other as the weight of years of silence lifted from my shoulders. The days that followed weren't easy. There were difficult conversations, misunderstandings, and moments when the fear tried to creep back in. But every time we faced it side by side, our love became a shield against the world's cruelty, a testament to the strength we'd found in each other. We started planning for the future, dreaming of a home filled with light and laughter. We talked about the family we wanted to create, the kind of life where love wasn't something to hide but to celebrate. One evening, standing on that same rooftop where we once made quiet promises, he pulled me close and whispered, "No matter what happens, I'm here, with you." And I believed him, because love, I learned, isn't about never falling. It's about standing back up together. Lost time was a wound we'd carry forever, but it wasn't the end of our story. It was just the beginning. As we watched the city lights twinkle beneath us, I knew that we had found something rare and beautiful, a love that had survived the storm and was ready to shine. Together,